stop scrolling through streaming services and paying rental fees for history. What if I told you that a treasure trove of classic, brutal, and groundbreaking World War II films are waiting for you completely free on YouTube right now? We are not talking about grainy home videos. We are talking about studio-released classics, Oscar winners, and forgotten masterpieces you can watch the moment this video ends. Your next great WWII movie night is just a click away, and your wallet stays full. This is your guide to the best free history lesson cinema has to offer. 1. The Fighting Lady, 1944. This is not a traditional narrative film. It is a living, breathing, color documentary filmed entirely from the flight decks and gun turrets of an American aircraft carrier in the Pacific. The Fighting Lady offers a "you are there" perspective that feels impossibly immediate, following the crew through intense naval battles against the Japanese fleet. The footage, much of it shot by acclaimed director Edward Steichen, is breathtaking. You will see dogfights from the cockpit, anti-aircraft fire lighting up the night sky, and the sheer organized chaos of launching and recovering planes on a tiny strip of steel in a vast ocean. It won the Academy Award for Best Documentary and remains one of the most authentic records of the Pacific Naval War ever compiled. Watching it is like opening a time capsule, hearing the actual voices and seeing the unscripted reactions of young men in the heart of the battle. The film's power is in its lack of a script. These are not actors. They are sailors and pilots, their faces etched with a mixture of concentration, fear, and exhaustion. The narration provides context, but the real story is told in the silent moments between attacks, the way a crewman wipes oil from his face, or the shared look of relief when a damaged plane somehow makes it back to the deck. The Fighting Lady is a vital primary source document and a thrilling piece of cinema all at once, a testament to the courage of the men who fought a war from the most vulnerable of fortresses, a city of steel adrift in a hostile ocean. 2. Memphis Belle, A Story of a Flying Fortress, 1944. This is the real story, the official documentary that inspired the Hollywood film. Narrated with solemn gravitas by director William Wyler, this film follows the crew of the famous B-17 Flying Fortress, the Memphis Belle, on their final, nerve-shredding mission over Germany. The authenticity is absolute, because it is absolute. Wyler and his cameraman flew on actual combat missions to get this footage, and the danger is palpable. You see the flak bursting around the formations, the German fighters diving in, and the quiet tension in the faces of the crew. The film was a massive propaganda effort to show the home front, the bravery of the bomber crews, but it transcends that purpose. It is a raw, unvarnished look at the sheer terror of the air war over Europe, where survival was often a matter of millimeters and pure luck. The moment the Belle lands after its 25th and final mission is a crescendo of tangible relief and triumph, a piece of history captured in real time. The film does not shy away from the cost. We see other B-17s, not the Belle, take direct hits and spiral out of formation, a stark reminder of the statistical improbability of completing 25 missions. Wyler's genius is in focusing on the mundane routines inside the plane, the checklists, the chatter over the intercom, the way the gunners constantly scan the sky. This normalcy makes the sudden eruptions of violent death all the more shocking. Memphis Belle is more than a documentary. It is a memorial, a flight log of courage that immortalizes not just one plane, but every crew who faced the flak and fighters over Fortress Europe. 3. The True Glory, 1945. This collaborative masterpiece between Hollywood and the British film industry, co-directed by Carol Reed and Garson Kanin, is the definitive cinematic record of the Western Front from D-Day to the fall of Berlin. Winner of the Academy Award for Best Documentary, it weaves together footage from hundreds of Allied cameramen to create a sweeping, coherent narrative of the campaign. The film is notable for its focus on the everyday soldier, sailor, and airman, telling the story through their collective, anonymous voice. It does not shy away from the cost, showing the destruction of cities and the grim reality of battlefield casualties, but it is ultimately a film about the relentless, grinding momentum of a victorious campaign. The True Glory is essential viewing for understanding the scale and complexity of the war in Europe, a monumental editing achievement that turns scattered moments of combat into a single, powerful story of liberation. The film's structure is its brilliance, moving from the chaos of Omaha Beach to the bitter street fighting in Cannes, the breakout at Falaise, the liberation of Paris, the horror of the Holocaust uncovered, and the final push into Germany. The narration, delivered in the folksy, weary voice of the common man, grounds the epic events in a deeply human perspective. It is a film that understands history is not just made by generals, but by the countless individuals who pushed a jeep out of the mud, advanced a mile down a hedgerow, or fired a mortar round into a machine gun nest. To watch The True Glory is to witness the entire European campaign condensed into a single, powerful, and overwhelmingly comprehensive narrative. 4. Hitler's Children, 1943. This is a fascinating and furious piece of American wartime propaganda that delves into the psychological indoctrination of German youth. The film follows a young American of German descent and a fervent female member of the Hitler Youth, exploring how the Nazi regime systematically crushed individual thought to create a generation of loyal fanatics. While its narrative is melodramatic by modern standards, its power lies in its use of actual Nazi newsreel and educational footage, showing the terrifying spectacle of mass rallies and the brainwashing of children. It is a chilling look at the mechanics of totalitarianism, serving as a stark warning about the dangers of blind obedience. The film was a massive commercial success in its day, showing that audiences were hungry to understand the enemy's ideology. Today, it stands as a historical artifact of both the Nazi menace and the Allied response to it. A film that is as much about the war of ideas as it is about physical conflict. The most unsettling sequences are those taken directly from Nazi sources, showing young boys being taught to strip and reassemble rifles, and girls being lectured on their duty to bear children for the Reich. Hitler's Children argues that the most dangerous weapon in the Nazi arsenal was not the Panzer or the Stuka, but the schoolroom. It is a time capsule of wartime fear and a prescient analysis of how dictatorships secure their future by capturing the minds of the young. 5. The Last Bomb, 1945. This Technicolor documentary is a stunning and terrifying look at the final stages of the air war against Japan, focusing specifically on the massive B-29 bombing raids. The footage is some of the most spectacular of the entire war, with vast formations of superfortresses set against the sky and the resulting firestorms on the ground below. The film is presented with a matter-of-fact military narration that contrasts sharply with the apocalyptic imagery. It details the logistical marvel of operating from remote Pacific islands and the technical precision of high-altitude bombing. While it was produced to justify the strategic bombing campaign to the American public, watching it today is a profoundly sobering experience. It provides crucial visual context for the end of the Pacific War, documenting the sheer destructive power that led to the use of the atomic bomb. It is a difficult but important film that captures the grim, total warfare that defined the conflict's conclusion. The film does not dwell on the human cost on the ground, but the images speak for themselves, presenting an almost abstract vision of hell, with entire cities transformed into seas of flame. The Last Bomb is a crucial historical document that sits at the moral crossroads of the war, showcasing the technological prowess that won it and the horrifying destructive capacity that would define the new world to come. 6. The Great Dictator, 1940, Charlie Chaplin's bold and brilliant satire, was released at a time when the United States was still officially neutral, and fears of Hitler were at a peak. In it, Chaplin plays a dual role, a tyrannical dictator clearly modeled on Adolf Hitler, and a gentle Jewish barber who is his exact double. The film is a masterpiece of courage, using humor as a weapon to ridicule the absurdity and evil of fascism. The famous final scene, where Chaplin drops his character and delivers a direct, heartfelt plea for peace and humanity, is one of the most powerful moments in cinematic history. At the time, it was a huge risk, both politically and for Chaplin's career. Today, it stands as a timeless testament to the power of art to confront tyranny. It is not a war film in the traditional sense, but it is an essential film about the ideological battle that World War II represented, and its message remains as urgent as ever. The comedy, particularly the iconic Globe Ballet sequence, is perfectly pitched, but it is the final speech that elevates the film to greatness. In that moment, Chaplin the clown vanishes, and Chaplin the conscience of the world appears, begging for a rejection of hatred and an embrace of reason and kindness. It is a staggering, brave, and emotionally overwhelming climax that confirms The Great Dictator as one of the most important films ever made. 7. 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, 1944. This is a gripping, big-budget Hollywood production released while the war was still raging, telling the true story of the daring Doolittle raid. With a stellar cast including Spencer Tracy, Van Johnson, and Robert Mitchum, the film recreates the audacious bombing run on Japan and the harrowing aftermath for the crews who had to crash land in China. The special effects, which earned an Academy Award, were groundbreaking for their time, creating a visceral sense of the low-level flight and the chaos of the attack. The film spends significant time on the Chinese villagers who risked everything to shelter the American airmen, highlighting a crucial and often overlooked aspect of the story. 30 Seconds Over Tokyo is a perfect example of the patriotic, star-driven war film of the 1940s, but it is executed with such skill and respect for the real-life heroes that it remains an incredibly exciting and emotionally resonant experience decades later. The film's second half, focusing on the injured crew's long and painful journey to safety with the help of Chinese guerrillas, is just as compelling as the raid itself, adding a layer of human endurance and international cooperation to the thrilling action. It is a full and complete tribute to one of the war's most audacious missions. 8. The Story of G.I. Joe, 1945. This is the film that redefined the war movie. Based on the frontline dispatches of famed war correspondent Ernie Pyle, it abandons all Hollywood glamour to present a gritty, unsentimental portrait of the common infantryman in the Italian campaign. Burgess Meredith embodies Pyle perfectly, and Robert Mitchum became a star with his iconic performance as a weary, compassionate captain. The film was shot in a stark, documentary-like style and was acclaimed for its authenticity, with many actual soldiers used in the cast. It does not focus on a single heroic mission, but on the day-to-day grind of war, the mud, the exhaustion, the constant danger, and the deep bonds between men. The Story of G.I. Joe was a profound influence on every realistic war film that followed, from Platoon to Saving Private Ryan. It is a somber, powerful, and deeply human tribute to the foot soldier, the man who bore the greatest burden of the war. The film's genius is in its accumulation of small details, the way the men write letters, share rations, and mourn their friends with a quiet, understated grief. There is no glory here, only the hard, dirty work of survival. The final scene, where Pyle reflects on the company's devastating losses, is a masterpiece of understated emotion, a eulogy for the countless ordinary men who did an extraordinary thing. 9. Bataan, 1943. This is a brutal and unrelenting film about the last stand of a diverse group of American and Filipino soldiers tasked with blowing up a bridge and holding back the Japanese advance. What sets Bataan apart from other films of its era is its shocking, downbeat ending. There is no last-minute rescue, no Hollywood victory. The film is a somber tribute to sacrificial courage, acknowledging that many heroes died in hopeless battles that were crucial to buying time for the Allied war effort. The ensemble cast is excellent, and the jungle warfare feels claustrophobic and desperate. Bataan was groundbreaking in its portrayal of a multi-ethnic unit, featuring a black soldier and a Filipino soldier as integral, respected members of the team. It is a tough, honest, and powerful film that refuses to offer easy comfort, making its tribute to the fallen all the more meaningful. The film is a slow-burning fuse of dread as the squad is whittled down one by snipers, disease, and banzai charges. The final image is one of the most iconic and bleak in war cinema, a stark reminder that for many, the war ended not in celebration, but in solitary, defiant sacrifice. 10. Sahara, 1943. This brilliant desert war film stars Humphrey Bogart in one of his most compelling non-Casablanca roles as the commander of a stranded American M3 Lee tank. He and his crew, a truly international group including a Sudanese soldier and an Italian prisoner, must defend a vital water well against a vastly superior German force. The film is a masterclass in suspense and character dynamics set in the unforgiving heat of the North African desert. Bogart's Sergeant Joe Gunn is the epitome of pragmatic, weary leadership, holding his men together through sheer force of will. The film explores themes of camaraderie, sacrifice, and the shared humanity that can sometimes transcend national enmity. Sahara is a tightly wound, intelligent, and immensely satisfying thriller that proves a compelling story, and strong characters can create more tension than any modern special effect. The central conflict is not just against the Germans, but against the desert itself, with water becoming a more precious commodity than ammunition. The film's moral complexity, particularly in its treatment of the Italian prisoner, was ahead of its time, suggesting that the lines between enemy and ally are not always clearly drawn in the sand. 11. The Desert Fox, 1951. This was a controversial and groundbreaking film for its time, offering a surprisingly sympathetic and nuanced portrait of German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. Starring James Mason in a career-defining performance, the film focuses on Rommel's command in North Africa, his growing disillusionment with Hitler, and his eventual involvement in the July 20th plot to assassinate the Führer. By humanizing a German general, the film dared to suggest that the enemy was not a monolithic block of evil, but comprised of complex individuals, some of whom ultimately turned against the Nazi regime. It was one of the first post-war films to explore this moral gray area, paving the way for more complex war films like Das Boot. The Desert Fox is a fascinating historical drama, less about battlefield tactics and more about the conflict between professional duty, personal honor, and a moral conscience in a time of supreme evil. The film's power lies in Mason's performance, which captures Rommel's brilliance, his vanity, his paternal care for his troops, and his dawning horror at the true nature of the cause he serves. It is a tragic character study of a good soldier in the service of a monstrous regime. 12. The Cruel Sea, 1953. This British masterpiece is one of the greatest naval war films ever made, a stark, uncompromising look at the Battle of the Atlantic from the bridge of a Royal Navy corvette. The film, based on Nicholas Montserrat's best-selling novel, is renowned for its utter lack of glamour. It captures the endless monotony of convoy duty, the bitter cold, the sudden, terrifying attacks by U-boats, and the horrific moral choices commanders had to make, such as depth-charging a potential U-boat, even if it meant killing their own men in the water. The performance by Jack Hawkins as the tormented captain is a study in stoic, burdened leadership. The Cruel Sea does not offer thrilling sea battles so much as a grinding war of attrition against a mostly unseen enemy and the cruel, unforgiving ocean itself. It is a sober, powerful and deeply authentic tribute to the men who fought this most vital and forgotten battle. The film's most memorable line, Hawkins' simple, weary statement, is the perfect summary of the entire conflict. The Cruel Sea is a film about responsibility, about the weight of command, and the psychological toll of making decisions where every choice leads to death. It is a monumental achievement in British cinema. 13. Battleground, 1949. This gritty Oscar-winning film is a landmark of the war genre. It follows the weary soldiers of the 101st Airborne Division as they are surrounded and besieged at Bastogne during the Battle of the Bulge. The film was celebrated for its realistic portrayal of the common soldier, their dark humor, their fears, and their sheer dogged endurance in the face of overwhelming odds and brutal winter conditions. The ensemble cast is phenomenal, featuring a young Van Johnson and James Whitmore. Battleground was shot in stark black and white on the MGM backlot, but it creates a powerful sense of immersion in the frozen foxholes of the Ardennes. It avoids grandiose speeches and focuses on the small human moments that define survival. Winning Academy Awards for its story and cinematography, Battleground set a new standard for realism in war films and remains a timeless, powerful tribute to the infantryman's war. The film's focus on the mundane is its strength. We see the struggle for a pair of dry socks, the joy of finding a discarded can of fruit cocktail, and the terror of a German propaganda broadcast. It is a film not about winning, but about holding on, a testament to the stubborn, unglamorous courage that won the Battle of the Bulge. 14. Army, 1944. This Japanese film, directed by the great Keisuke Kinoshita, is a complex and critical look at the Imperial Japanese military in the years leading up to World War II. The story follows a family whose lives are dominated by the militaristic culture of the 1930s, with a mother who fervently believes it is her highest honor to have her sons serve the emperor. The film's most famous and powerful scene is its final single-take shot, a masterful and daring piece of cinema that subtly critiques the blind nationalism that was consuming the nation. For a film made in 1944 under strict government censorship, its critical stance is remarkably brave and nuanced. It offers a rare internal look at the social pressures and familial sacrifices demanded by the Japanese war machine, making it a profoundly important and unique film from the Axis perspective, now accessible to a global audience. The film's tragedy is that of the mother, a woman so indoctrinated by the state that she sacrifices her own humanity and the happiness of her family on the altar of an abstract and destructive ideology. The final shot, holding on her face as she processes a devastating personal loss with a mixture of grief and twisted pride, is one of the most psychologically complex moments in all of wartime cinema. Army is a quiet, devastating, and incredibly courageous film. 15. The Bridge, 1959. This devastating German anti-war film is a forgotten masterpiece of the genre. Set in the final days of World War II, it follows a group of 7 teenage schoolboys in a small German town who are hastily drafted into the army. Full of romantic notions of glory, they are assigned to defend a worthless bridge against the advancing American forces. The film systematically dismantles their idealism, leading to a harrowing and senseless climax. The Bridge is a furious indictment of the Nazi regime's willingness to sacrifice its own children for a lost cause. The young actors deliver performances of shocking naturalism, making their fate all the more tragic. The film's power lies in its intimacy. It is not about grand strategy, but about the betrayal of youth, the poison of propaganda, and the ultimate, pointless waste of war. To find such a biased, powerful, critical, and emotionally shattering film from post-war Germany available for free is a remarkable opportunity for any viewer seeking to understand the war's human cost beyond the battlefield. The final battle for the bridge is not heroic, it is a chaotic, terrifying, and confusing mess, exactly as real combat is for unprepared boys. The bridge stands as a direct and angry response to the myth of a clean Wehrmacht and the romanticization of the German soldier, instead showing the war for what it was for so many, a meaningless, bloody sacrifice orchestrated by a leadership that had long since abandoned its people. Your history lesson and your next movie night are now completely free. I have just given you 15 direct tickets to the past. So which of these films are you loading up first? Let me know in the comments which hidden gem you're most excited to discover. And now for the question that will define this discussion. With all of these classics available for free, does paying for a streaming service even make sense for a true history buff anymore? Or are we witnessing the dawn of a new era where our cinematic past is truly democratized? I am eager to hear your thoughts.